Welcome to GoldandBlack.com Saturday Simulcast. Actually, a Friday edition of it because we're going to have our interviews in advance of tonight's game, Friday night's game against Indiana in Mackey Arena. Really good show today as we are joined by Chris Kramer, the Boilermaker legend. Played for Coach Matt Painter from 2007 to 2010. Then Rob Blackman will join us, of course, the voice of Purdue basketball, with his insights, not only on tonight's game, but the state of Purdue men's basketball. And Don Fischer, of course, the legendary voice of Indiana basketball and football, who's had a lot of memories about Purdue, Indiana over the years. And we'll look forward to getting caught up with Don. And in addition to celebrating Rob Blackman, who is the Indiana Sportscaster of the Year for 2025. So good show today, and a reminder that you can like and subscribe on YouTube if you're listening to us there or watching us there. If you are watching us or listening to us on Apple Podcast or Spotify or whatever your favorite platform is, leave us a 5-star review. And certainly a positive comment would be great as well. And we appreciate those of you that consider becoming a member of GoldandBlack.com. That is to get all of our content, Knucklehead Central, our message boards, all the great content that Brian, Tom, Dub, Mike Carmen produced for us. You can become a member. Some specials going on. Look for that YouTube special, 2 months for $1. Using code PU1 if you'd like to do that. So without further ado, we'll bring you Chris Kramer first up and enjoy the show. Alan Karpik here with Chris Kramer, a guy that needs no introduction to Purdue basketball fans. I don't know, you're too young to be a legend, but 2007 to 2010 defensive stalwart, member of Big Ten championship teams from tournament and regular season. And, of course, a guy that's probably as responsible as just about anybody for the turnaround in Purdue basketball under Coach Matt Painter to where this program is now. But, Chris, you look at last night and the competitive guy that we all know you are, and you've got family life going on and not able to be there in person, but watching last night, on Tuesday night, I should say, as Purdue got handled pretty easily by Michigan in a lot of ways. What were your takeaways from that one?
You know, I tweeted this before the game that I thought the game was going to be won on the backboards. You know, the rebounding battle was going to be crucial. I know the offensive rebounding battle looked closer numbers-wise than it really was in terms of second chance points.
Yeah.
And so I think my first two keys were rebounding and then closing out on shooters in post double or scramble situations. And in both of those scenarios, we got beat.
Yeah.
You know, it was 14-2 second chance points in the first half, which essentially, you know, Purdue came back and battled in the second half, but that was the ball game.
Yeah.
Too big of a hole. Michigan's too good of a team. Had it been a couple shots, maybe have went down here or there, maybe things could have swayed. You know, those two Fletcher threes. If one of those goes down, maybe things get a little different. But, you know, we missed both of those. But I think those are the biggest keys that I thought in Michigan just kind of dominated in both of those situations. Their length. I thought Mara was really good. He blocked some shots, but he altered a lot. He bully balled sometimes offensively, ran the court. Like, he showed his whole skill set. And then Yaxel Lindenborg, I mean, for the video that came out and, you know, he answered the call. I mean, you know, he really did. And a lot of people might fold under that. And he came out and he played well. He hit shots, which is not his strong suit, you know, percentage wise. But he played well. They put him on Braden. They put him on TK.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he played really well.
Yeah, he did, and seemed to from being in the arena last night, seemed to have some fun with that. Maybe it was because the Wolverines had Purdue at arm's length throughout the course of the game. He didn't overdo it, but he also just was terrific. His length is, like you said, just being able to deal with Braden Smith on a couple possessions, and then running up against TKR, he can do a lot of things. And this, I think, also the thing that I know that Dusty May said post game too is they ran 8 or 9 guys out there and it didn't seem to matter. I mean, their Michigan's bench was terrific throughout the course of the game, and Purdue had some moments. Over Meyer had some moments in the first half and some in the second half, but just too much for Purdue to handle.
Yeah, they were. You can't give a great team like that second chance opportunities. And the thing is, Purdue was in good position a lot of those times. The length just played a battle of knocking the ball out and then getting into scramble situations after those offensive rebounds and giving up threes. And then in some of those scramble situations, almost essentially unguarded threes, horse shots, if you will. And, Michigan shot those at a high rate and a high clip. And you can't do that against a great team like Michigan. They punished Purdue at every chance they got with every mistake.
What you look at this team, and you played on teams with high expectations, especially in your junior and senior years. I mean, it's tough when you're in that environment and you're the preseason number one. And yet it's really hard to tell who is going to be the best. Purdue's still certainly a top 10, top 12 team. But when you look at that in the psyche of doing that and having gone through that a little bit yourself as a player, maybe not quite to that level in terms of preseason number one, but that's a burden to bear sometimes for basketball teams.
Yeah, but that's what you want, right? Like you want that responsibility.
Yeah.
You want that recognition of, the season you had last year, the guys you have coming back, like these are the expectations.
Yeah.
But that's what it is. It's all expectation. It's all, it doesn't matter. Coach Painter said it yesterday. That's not proven, right? What Michigan has done thus far to be number one in the country right now is proven. They've proved to be the number one team in the country thus far. And, with great expectation comes great responsibility.
Yeah.
And, I can't remember the last time Purdue's lost 3 games at home in a season. Given they lost to 3 great teams, don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
Iowa State's a phenomenal team, especially phenomenal defensively.
Yeah.
Keaton Wagler put on an epic performance, for Illinois. And then, Michigan at this point is the best team in the country. And all those losses came in Mackey Arena. It doesn't happen that way very often. But, if you want to play for championships, you have to win some of those games.
Yeah.
And, especially those Big Ten games, you have to protect your home court. Yeah. And, now, we're playing for seeding in the NCAA tournament and the Big Ten tournament. But, now we have to turn the page, and that's what we're playing for now. We're not playing for a Big Ten championship anymore. But, the expectations of, people say Final Four or bust, national championship or bust, like all of that's still in front of you.
Yes.
All those goals are still attainable. But now it's what do we do between, let's say Friday against IU moving forward until whenever the last game is, hopefully April 9th or whatever it is, playing for a national championship in Indianapolis. What are we going to do between now and then to solidify Purdue to be one of the best teams at the end of the year? Because, everything in the middle hasn't exactly, went the way they wanted it to, but March is what ultimately matters.
Yeah, leadership is a thing that you had in from a toughness standpoint, and I'm not insinuating this group isn't that, because Braden Smith would be hard to say, and Fletcher Loyer hard to say that those guys haven't experienced a lot in the backcourt, et cetera. But that toughness quotient and being able to draw from that when times are tough, and when all of a sudden at least one goal is pretty much out the window, and that's winning a Big Ten regular season championship. Is it that, that daily practice grind of, just keeping that focus and keeping your eye on the prize of what you need to be in March and April? You outline that, but there's still that intangible thing that Purdue's got to. Do you sense that it's just not quite there yet, or hasn't been there yet? Is that your assessment as well, or do you've seen this team play throughout the course of the year? Or what is there something missing slightly, or is this just a function that there's so many good teams in the not only in the Big Ten but across the country?
I mean, there is a bunch of really good teams right now, and I think it's one of those situations where if you don't play your best basketball that night, you're going to lose.
Yeah.
And, that's why the NCAA tournament is so great. It's a one-game tournament every night.
Yeah.
And if you don't show up, you can get beat by anybody, as we know. And, so that's what's looking forward. But between now and the NCAA tournament, the Big Ten tournament, it's how can I'll say we as Purdue, get playing the best basketball in all facets, right?
Yeah.
Rebounding, defensively, offensively. How can we play, getting quality shots every time down the court, not turning the basketball over, quality rotations, closing out to shooters, closing out to drivers differently, all those fine details that come from scouting reports and things like that. All of those things are what's going to really matter come March. It's all quick turnarounds, right? It's one-day preps. It's, night preps before you play again in the Big Ten tournament. So all of those details, this is going to turn into a mental game, right? The physical is you going out there and playing, but can you take what you see from video and apply it to the court? If you can, you have a great opportunity to be successful. This group has played in a bunch of games. They've seen every defense known to man, especially Braden in every pick and roll situation. Honestly, what I think it comes down to offensively is making shots.
Yeah.
But getting great quality shots.
Yeah.
And then on the defensive end, the couple games prior, Nebraska, besides when, in the first half of Nebraska, flying around, closing out, that type of effort for 40 minutes, Purdue can beat a lot of people and, can get to Indianapolis for sure.
You look at that game even against Michigan, and your point is valid about Purdue got 3-point shots. They didn't get a lot of, and they got some open looks, but they got some ones that were under duress too. And that's that fine line of, yes, Purdue didn't shoot well from three, but Michigan had something to do with that in terms of how they made, Loyer had a couple good looks that he would like to have back, certainly. But Michigan's defense had a lot to do with that. And that's that function of getting, you can get attempts, but it's quality attempts also that's going to make the difference with a team like Purdue that can shoot it well.
Yeah. I think some of those, like the two shots that, Fletch airballed.
Yeah.
Those are like momentum shots, right?
Yeah,
if he hits those, Mackey erupts. It's going to be, the top might blow off of Mackey Arena. And then the game it's dicey now, right? Is Michigan has to answer, which every time Purdue made a run last night, Elliott Cadeau, LJ Kaysen, Yaxel, they made the next play.
Yeah.
Right? Teams have a lot of trouble when the crowd gets into it, especially at Mackey, of making that next play. Typically, teams fold and turn it over or take a horrible shot, and then Purdue goes again and gets another one and another one, and the games can turn just like that. Michigan showed a poise and a togetherness that not a lot of teams have done, that I've seen in Mackey Arena, both as a player and as just as a fan. So, that is credit to them. But I think, some of the shots that we took, I think, CJ had 2 threes blocked late in the second half. Two of the shots by Fletch. It's knowing what those shots are, time, score, shot clock, all those kind of situations. If you've hit a couple in a row, maybe you get a little bit more leniency to let another one fly, heat check. But in some of those situations, if we could have had another possession, got a really quality shot, especially with TK just going to town on those dudes last night in the second half. We could have put a little bit more pressure and then made them make another play and another play. But it's all learning at this point. I mean, if Fletch makes one of those or makes both of them, what happens, right? It's a what if. It didn't happen. Has he made a bunch of those in his career? Absolutely. But he didn't, and we lose, and it is what it is. You got to take the good with the bad sometimes. But were they the best shots that we could have gotten in those positions? Probably not.
Indiana is always a special game in your playing days. It was, and it is for Purdue fans. Is this a good time, and when Purdue takes on Indiana, because you come back after an emotional game? There was a lot of hype, obviously, in the Michigan game. It didn't go as like Purdue would have liked it to have gone, and now you play your rival, someone that you owe a little something to after Indiana beat Purdue back in January. Do you subscribe to that theory? This opponent in this situation is a good thing for Purdue, and maybe to get itself back, get a little bit of that confidence back, or how do you view it?
I think it is at the right time. I think Purdue definitely has a sour taste in their mouth for, especially that first 20 minutes on Tuesday. And then really for just a lot of the performance in Bloomington, it wasn't ideal, right? Right. I think it comes at a great time. It can start to, get the ball rolling as we, there's only 3 home games left for these seniors, right? And, this one against, your rival, to kind of get the ball rolling as we head into this final stretch here of, 5-6 games, whatever it is. And, can we run the table here, get playing great basketball as we go into March to the Big Ten tournament and really keep it rolling, right? Like, this is where we have to start. We fumbled right here against Michigan. We have IU, your rival. You want to kind of correct your mistakes from Bloomington, that game against Michigan, and it's definitely at the perfect time. I expect TK to be a menace, a monster again. He's playing with a tenacity, Dennis Rodman-like on the glass. Just a relentlessness in attacking and going for every rebound. But the best part about TK that I've seen lately is the emotion, right? He's not getting caught up in the nonsense with the referees
what he was doing
or the players. No, he's just like, I'm here and I'm going to kill you. I'm going at you and I'm going to punish you every chance I get. And he's been, honestly playing phenomenal. If it's, scoring 31 or, scoring 15 but having 18 rebounds, right? He's been phenomenal. But I'm expecting those big 3 to have a really big night come Friday.
Indiana has had, obviously in game 1 back on January 27th in Bloomington, shot a lot of threes, shot them well, and hit big shots at the right time. And they certainly, the Hoosiers have used that as part of their arsenal. They don't have a great inside game, though. They've had some good play at times of late inside. But what do you expect to see from Indiana? Because they do have weapons, the Hoosiers do offensively. They can cause a lot of teams problems if you're not dialed in defensively.
I think Lamar Wilkinson's going to get his points. He's going to take his shots. He's going to score his, roughly 20 points. You can kind of book that. But it's the other guys, right? It's Nick Dorn. It's Tucker DeVries. It's Sam Alexis. it's Connor Enright.
Yeah.
I mean, those guys have been the ones kind of riding the ship for them. Lamar Wilkerson's been Lamar Wilkerson all year.
Yeah.
But when those other guys play well, IU is a completely different team than when Lamar Wilkerson is a one-man show.
Yeah.
So, I think it starts with, guarding those other guys. Can Purdue get Tucker DeVries in foul trouble? I think in Bloomington, Sam Alexis barely played, but Reed Bailey was phenomenal.
Yeah.
So, Oscar Clough, TK, I think this is going to be like a personal game for them. I think Sam Alexis has kind of played more as of late than Reed Bailey, but given his success in the game in Bloomington, I could see him getting thrown in there if things get if Sam Alexis is struggling a little bit. But I think this game is going to come down to, can Purdue guard their role players and, especially from the three-point line.
Yeah. Excellent analysis from a guy that's been there and has had they still show it on the video screen on his little skirmish with DJ White. Always gets Purdue fans a little juiced up. I mean, that memory. I mean, the memory of playing in that series and the guys you played with is still. And being an Indiana kid from Huntington, Indiana, it's a big deal. I mean, you got to be juiced up, and if you're Braden Smith and Fletcher, and they will be, but there's an extra little bit juice going into this game.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, this is one of those games that, the best part about it was, I mean, we were always had a better record, I believe. Yeah. Maybe not my freshman year. But, it was – you could throw the records out the window.
Yeah.
I mean, it's literally – it didn't matter because it was just all-out war. And, obviously the game's called officiated differently than it was back then. So, that's not as much of a factor. But, as a player, these are the games you want, right? It's going to be an electric atmosphere again. But it's one of those things you can't get emotionally drunk, right? You can't get caught up in the excitement and the hype. You have to try to control your emotions and, get through that first TV timeout. Get your second wind, compose yourself from there, and then go out and play. Because if you lose yourself in the emotions and get emotionally drunk, then you're just going to, empty the tank really quickly, and you're going to look just completely lost and disoriented out there.
All right. Chris Kramer will be in the house come tonight to Purdue, Indiana. Who will be joining? And you got to get us quickly caught up on your family, because you're coaching, you're parenting, you're doing a lot of things that you should be doing at your age, and probably doing it. I know you're doing it well, but get us a little bit caught up to not only who's coming with you to Mackey tonight, but also what's your family life's going on and what's going on in your life these days.
Yeah, my wife will be coming with me, yeah, I'm working, coaching my oldest daughter Sophie's upwards basketball, so that'll be drive back after the game and see if we can.
You got practice Saturday morning, I assume, or
no? We have practice. We have practice Thursday night, so then game on Saturday at 11. So we'll rush back, get a few hours sleep, and see if we can get it done and finish the year with one loss. And but yeah, man, it's kids and work, spending time with the family as much as I can. But hey, I'm blessed, man, very, very blessed.
All right, before there was a current number 3, Braden Smith, this number 3 was as good as it gets, and Purdue fans you're too young for anybody. Everybody remembers that, and that part's fun. So we'll look forward to seeing you in Mackey Arena. It will be a special night when Purdue takes on Indiana, and it will be fun to watch Purdue down the stretch. If you didn't have a dog in the hunt, you could sit back and enjoy it. It's hard. It's hard when you're in your shoes, where this is personal, and this is your legacy and your team that you've been so involved with over the years. But Chris, thanks so much for your time. We appreciate it so much.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thanks for having me.
All right. Take care and safe travels.
Thank you.
I'm with Rob Blackman, the voice of Purdue men's basketball, and also obviously on the Purdue Radio Network as well in football. And Rob, we want to hit there's a variety of topics. You and I have known each other for some 22 years, and that's a good thing for me. But the opportunity to talk about obviously tonight's game, Indiana. We're recording this, truth be told, a day or two early, but we're going to talk like it's tonight. Rob knows that masterful skill that we do in broadcasting. But obviously after the Michigan game on Tuesday night and a tough loss where Purdue was at arm's length. I mean, Michigan had Purdue at arm's length throughout the course of the basketball game, and Michigan is really, really good. What do you think coming back? Purdue owes Indiana one after probably its worst first half of the season down in Bloomington. What do you see tonight? Because it's going to be a charged environment. I don't think it'll be too subdued for too long, despite Tuesday's results. But what do you think?
Well, I do think, and this is not even my own original thought, I have to give credit to my broadcast partner, Bobby Riddell, because he said this to me. I don't even know that it made the air in our post-game show Tuesday. I think he said it during the commercial break, but probably from a Purdue standpoint, the timing here is just about right to have Indiana coming to town, coming off that loss. No offense to, say, a Washington or an Oregon, but I don't think you maybe would get the juice in the building coming off that loss to number one Michigan the way you're going to have tonight for this one against Indiana. So at least it looks, and you know how this works, just because on paper it looks like it's right doesn't mean it's going to be right, but it sure looks on paper like this is pretty good timing for Purdue here. And the fact, obviously, that Indiana won that first game down in Bloomington, one would think would have the Boilermakers on edge a little bit here. I would caution Purdue fans, though, if you look at the schedule, I'm talking about all the advantages for Purdue in scheduling. Indiana's had the whole week off to prepare for this game. So they get a few extra days rest here. So, but again, my gut feeling, Alan, tells me that the timing, if you're going to lose to number one in your building, in the way that Purdue lost Tuesday night, I don't know that you could draw up a better scenario than to have Indiana coming to town. So we'll see if Purdue can get it done tonight.
Indiana certainly has, and partially, if not a lot, to do with the victory over Purdue back in January, but it's definitely taken up an uptick. It's had the 20-point loss recently, but this is a team that is going to get your attention. They can shoot the three, and if they don't like what they're shooting, they're going to shoot it some more. We know that, and that has not always been Purdue's strength. And it also, when we saw it in Michigan, shooting the three extremely well, that can be the great equalizer. Even in a game in Mackey Arena where Purdue, is a decided favorite. Yeah, boy, and you think, look. Let's just look at the recent schedule here for Purdue. We'll start with the two wins at Nebraska and at Iowa. The Nebraska game, Purdue shoots 46 threes, school record by a mile. Yeah. And then the next game against Iowa, Purdue shot more threes than twos again, which really has not been the norm for Purdue basketball. But Purdue did have success in both of those games because Purdue shot a fairly decent percentage from three. That was not the case Tuesday night, although the irony, Purdue did attempt more threes than Michigan. Certainly didn't feel like it the way Michigan was shooting the ball, but that is the great equalizer. I got to tell you, Alan, I was so distraught after the loss of Michigan that night. And then the next morning I'm looking at the stat sheet and I'm like, Purdue really didn't play that badly. They just didn't shoot it well. Now they got out rebounded by 8, but they had 8 less turnovers. So the possession battle ends up being even. If you look at the numbers across the board, it was a very poor shooting night for Purdue. You look at the 30% from three, yet Purdue still scores 80 points against the number one defense in the country. Purdue only had 6 turnovers against the number one defense in the country and the number one team in the country. So Braden Smith, I think, would be the first to tell you he played his worst half of basketball in that first half all season. He still finishes with 20 points and 6 assists and 4 steals, even though he didn't score a single point in the first half. So, and Trey Coffin-Wren played at such a high level with a double-double. There just were a lot of numbers statistically that you're like, I'm still not sure how Purdue even lost this game. But I think what it ultimately comes down to is Michigan is so uber talented.
and the fact that they shoot 55% from three. Okay, look, that's 20 percentage points better than their norm. They'd been 35% from three in the Big Ten games only. They go 55% at Mackey. They're already talented enough. They don't need 55% from three. Okay, that's just not fair with the number one team in the country. So I just don't see any scenario that Purdue is going to beat them on Tuesday, not with Michigan shooting like that and Purdue shooting the way it did. So, again, hope this is a good sign that Purdue can muster 80 points against the number one defense in the country and shoot it as poorly as they did, and maybe that ultimately is a good sign going forward. I'm not sure, but I sure hope it is.
Yeah, Michigan certainly gets your attention, though, with its length under the basket.
Yes.
Its length everywhere, and
Right.
that I think was they really were impressive from that standpoint. But shooting matters, and that no question that Michigan is barring anything unforeseen, is going to win the undisputed Big Ten championship, though it does have to play Illinois on the 27th of February. The common thread, though, it's been interesting at home, and Purdue's had some challenges defending the three at times, but it's been interesting at home in a difficult way for Purdue fans. But you have losses to Iowa State, which a game that wasn't really close at all. And then, of course, at the game at Illinois, which was very close, and Purdue had a chance to close it out, leading late in that game, and Michigan. But the common thread, these are very, very skilled teams that shot the ball extremely well. I mean, what any other things that you take from those three losses in Mackey Arena from a Purdue standpoint?
Well, I would take, and I mentioned this on the radio broadcast Tuesday, to me, of all the amazing things that just don't seem to make any sense this season, especially with this year's team, is Purdue is 3-3 against the top 15 in the country, which is, I think you can live with that. You go 3-3 against the top 15, but all three of the losses have come at home. That just makes no sense. How have the three losses have all come at Mackey Arena, where certainly Purdue normally has a very decided advantage against the opposition. And then you throw in the fact that what you're alluding to, that all three of those games, the opponent really shot it extremely well from three. And you find yourself walking out of the gym going, well, if they wouldn't have shot it like that from three, we'd probably win the game. Unfortunately, we've had to say that three times now, which again is just, to me, is mind-boggling that you're 3-3 against the top 15 and your three losses have come at home. Think about this, Alan. When the schedule first came out, we saw the games that were home and away, the single plays I'm talking about. And we saw Illinois. Yeah. All right, only have to play them at home. What a break for Purdue. Yeah. Michigan. Only have to play them at home. What a break for Purdue. Well, it turned out not to be such a good break when it was all said and done. So that's what I take from all of that, just the maddening fact that Purdue has been so dominant at Mackey Arena over the years, yet for whatever reason this year, against the elite competition, Purdue has not found a way to get it done. Hopefully that changes very soon, but now you're kind of running out of chances to win some home games because you're running out of home games here.
Well, I don't think anybody's bingo card would be three home losses with this group and the senior,
right.
With Matt, no question. And, let's put some perspective, and you sit about as close to Matt Painter as you can legally with your broadcast position, at least in West Lafayette and Mackey Arena. Not always the case on the road. But this is a head coach and a staff that's pretty even-keeled. I thought Matt Painter, after the loss to Michigan, certainly credited how good Michigan is. And Michigan is a step ahead of everybody, at least at this point in the season. I think they're a step ahead of everybody in the country. Now, we say that, and then Saturday night at Duke, something made – and that would be no shame for the Wolverines to lose that game against, I think, third-ranked Duke. But talk about just the way that – and you're very close to these guys. You travel with them. You're around them a lot. You've been around them for a long, long time. Just that being able to steady the ship. You've got seniors that this means a lot to them. Just looking at the travails of this season and the challenges and being ranked preseason number one, all those kinds of things, and how you see that they kind of deal with that situation as they continue to progress through the season.
Well, when you speak about the seniors exclusively, Alan, the one thing that does give me some great comfort as a Purdue fan headed down the stretch here is and Matt Painter has said this numerous times too. This is, again, it's not my only original thought here, thought from me, but they've literally seen it all. There's nothing they haven't seen. They've been a Big Ten regular season champion. They've won the Big Ten tournament. They have lost to a 16 seed as a 1 in the NCAA tournament. They've gone all the way to the national championship game. They literally have seen every possible scenario, quite frankly, you could have throughout their careers. So what better learning experiences for a group of seniors to have than the fact that they've been through all of this at least once, every different type of scenario for all intents and purposes. So that does give me some comfort that there's nothing new here. And I would even look, even some recency bias here, a 3-game losing streak, which has already happened this year. Purdue has had to find a way to fight out of that, and did by winning 4 games in a row coming out of that. So, yeah, to me, that if this was a younger group, maybe the group like when Braden in this group were freshmen, maybe I'd have some hesitation about, kind of the ebbs and flows of the way this season has gone. But look, the crazy thing is, and I understand Purdue has lost 5 games. Outside of the UCLA game, quite frankly, that's really the only one that I felt like Purdue really gave it away. I mean, they had a 2-possession lead with 2 minutes left, and the ball, you should never have lost that one. And quite frankly, if you just show up in Indiana and have a little bit of a spirited effort in the first 20 minutes, you probably win that one too. So I don't know there's any real shame. And I guess what I'm saying is Purdue has no bad losses, right? Yeah. And I think even when you look at those folks that call themselves the bracketologists, most everyone still has Purdue as a 2 seed in the upcoming NCAA tournament, which, look, if you can't be a 1, you might as well be a 2. Because last I checked, if you're going to get to the Final Four, you're probably playing the 1 anyway to get to the Final Four. So 1 or 2, I don't know that there's a real decided advantage there. But yes, and again, I've spoken to many fans about this. I do understand the expectations to start the year were sky high. Preseason number 1, odds-on favorite to win the national championship. I think the one thing that none of us knew, and it's hard to know in today's college basketball world, is just how good Michigan was going to be. I don't think anyone saw that coming, especially not with what they did in the transfer portal with their frontline guys. And that's why when I heard Coach Painter, I heard the same things you did on Tuesday night, him, complimenting Michigan. If you look at the guys that are dominating that front line for them, and yes, Yaxel Lindenberg, you kind of saw that one coming. I don't think anyone was surprised by that. Morez Johnson last year, he started 8 games for Illinois. He averaged 7 points a game. Adai Mara did not start a single game last year at UCLA. So it's not like you said, oh, boy, these guys are going to be real stars, for Michigan. No one saw that coming. But they certainly have played their roles quite well. And that, to me, I'm still not convinced that Purdue doesn't finish in second place in the Big Ten. Now, maybe I'll come back to have egg in my face on that, but I'm at least in a tie for second with Illinois. And when it's all said and done, if that's what happens and Michigan wins the league, which it certainly looks like they're going to do, I think there's no shame in that. Again, because no one, I think, could foresee that Michigan was going to be this good with the transfer portal guys they brought in. Everyone thought they're going to be pretty good, but man, not the way they're dominating the league right now.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that I guess if I'm a Purdue partisan, you would prefer maybe not to be the 2 seed in Michigan's region in the NCAA tournament.
I don't think anyone. I don't think anyone in the country would want to be the 2 seed in Michigan's region.
One of the things I think has been interesting too is 2024, and this is taking nothing away from Purdue's magical run to the Final Four. And I think Brian Newbert, and you probably have thought this as well, that they lost to Michigan was kind of like the UConn game. I mean, it was a little bit. They had you.
Absolutely.
They had you. This is just a better basketball team, at least at this point in time. And who knows where it will be in a month from now. But my point is, I would argue that the 2024 version, there were 5 teams that are really at an elite level, and that may be plus or minus a couple. This year, there are 15. And yet, I think Michigan's head and shoulders above what I've seen so far. And again, come when they play Duke, that may change. But you see that along the landscape of college basketball. There's just there are a number of teams. I think every game from the Sweet 16 on is going to be a complete, for lack of a better term, war to get through if you're Purdue or if you're anybody else.
And I would, I always harken back to what Coach Painter talked about after that UConn game. And I know you heard him say this too, Alan, but he was like, look, if this is the NBA and that's a best of 7 series, no way, we're never beating UConn. But we only had to beat them 1 game, right? The beauty of an NCAA tournament. You only have to beat them 1. You don't have to beat them 4 out of 7. Interestingly enough, earlier today, listening to some college sports radio on Sirius XM, they were saying the experts were saying the same thing about Michigan. They're like, hey, the rest of the country needs to be really glad that this is not a best of 7 type of deal because Michigan's winning it all. If that's the case, no one is beating Michigan 4 times out of 7, but you only have to do it once. And that, so it's ironic that you would bring that up because I know I keep repeating myself, but to me, from what I have seen with my own 2 eyes, Michigan is heads and shoulders above everybody else, not only in the Big Ten, but it looks like in the country.
All right, the special, tonight, Purdue, Indiana is always a special event in Mackey Arena. I agree with Bob's assessment that it really might help Purdue's psyche a little bit tonight to have to bounce back in the game. But you've seen this rivalry, and I know you grew up just north of West Lafayette, watching Bob Knight and Gene Cady go at it also. But now it's reached a different thing, but it's always special. But even if the opportunity to broadcast this game from your perspective, how do you look at that? How do you encapsulate all your experiences having done it in Mackey Arena? It's a big deal.
Well, it is a big deal. I will share the story I believe I've shared with you before in this format. When Bob Knight had his company, when he came back to Assembly Hall for the first time in years, my broadcast partner at that time was still Larry Clisby. And it is halftime. They brought Coach Knight out at halftime, full house, as you might imagine. No one had gone to the bathroom nor the concession stand because they knew Coach Knight was coming out of that tunnel. And I'm doing my halftime spiel, talking about what I'm seeing on the court. And I turned to Cliz to get a comment from him, and he's full crying, tears coming out of both eyes. And so I got flustered just with the commercial break. I said, "Is it a commercial?" I'm like, "Cliz, hey man, what, you okay?" And he's like, "You just don't understand how special this is from a Purdue guy's standpoint." And then, as he quickly pointed out, I called every single game when I was here between Bob Knight and Gene Cady. So what a big deal that was for him. So I use that as a way of leading into, if Larry Clisby is in tears for the other team's coach, for Bob Knight to make an appearance, that tells you how special this rivalry is. And yes, I am not a Purdue graduate, but I, as you said, grew up 30 minutes or so north of Purdue and grew up rooting for Purdue. And I understand what it means. And I feel very blessed to have the opportunity to be a small part of it. But hey, there's nothing like it. And I would just look at really even the last 4 years or so, where there's basically been, split series. Each team's winning one game a year for the most part. It's not because, the team that wins has had the better team. It's just because it is the rivalry game and it means more. And this will probably make a few Indiana fans mad. And I understand that. But, Purdue is a better team than Indiana right now. And Purdue should have won in Bloomington, but they did not, because Purdue did not come out with the type of intensity needed for that type of a rivalry game, which was very unfortunate. So hopefully there is a lesson learned in the game tonight, because Purdue can ill afford to start slowly again tonight against Indiana, or guess what? We're going to have the same result, unfortunately.
Yeah, no doubt. Anything can happen. All right. Rob Blackman would be the last person to toot his horn about being named Indiana Sportscaster of the Year. And I think, and I get that, but it's quite an honor. And the thing I am most impressed about Rob, and I'm doing another story for another publication on it, and got to meet the Blackman posse, even though these are all great broadcasters, and his lovely wife, Steph, etc. But Rob Blackman is, in tying to Larry Clisby. First, I want to ask you, encapsulate what that means to you to win the sportscaster here, because you're doing racing, you're doing other things, but it's a tremendous honor, I'm sure.
Yes, it is. When I originally found out I'd been nominated with a group of 4 or 5 others, I thought that was pretty cool, certainly, and I felt very honored, but I didn't realistically think I would win, which is okay. I mean, that's fine. The great irony to this, or I guess uniqueness of the story, is I actually got the phone call on New Year's Day in the afternoon, and I didn't answer the phone. because it was a strange number from North Carolina calling in the afternoon on New Year's Day. I just assumed this has to be spam. How could it not be? Who calls on New Year's Day? And then I found out later that night when I listened to the message that, congratulations. So, quite an honor. Again, back to the Cliz. I know I've referenced the Cliz a bunch, but he's so important to me. He always had a funny line because for years, Don Fischer, the longtime voice of Indiana basketball and football, IU Hoosiers, he kept winning this award year after year after year. Yeah. And Cliz would always joke with Don when he would see him. He'd say, Don, you only win that award because you pay the yearly dues to be in the group. and so now I finally win it. I wish the Cliz were here to see me win it so I could say to him, you know what, Cliz, I didn't pay the dues, yet I somehow still won. I'm not sure how this happened, but quite an honor. Yes, certainly came from out of left field a little bit for me, but I'm over the moon that the rest of the folks in the state thought highly enough to me to vote for me as the broadcaster of the year.
And the coincidence, and I don't think it's irony, but the coincidence is Don Fischer's going to be a guest here later on this show. And,
right. And well, I think you'll have to ask him out, but I think he's won the same award 30 some times, maybe.
Yeah.
So I have a long way to go to catch him, but at least I finally have one that I can put on my mantle.
Yeah, no doubt. And Fish has had quite the year this year in football.
Yes, he has.
We'll be talking about that a little bit. I think the other thing, it tells you everything you need to know about Rob Blackman, and it was a very emotional moment for Purdue fans. You talk about tears in Detroit, where Purdue has its moment in the sun where it beats Tennessee in the most dramatic fashion. And the first thing that Rob Blackman does is pay, if my facts are correct, and I wasn't listening to it in real time because I was sitting in the stands. However, paying homage to Larry Clisby and saying, Larry, we all would have loved to have seen Larry had that opportunity to have another trip to the Final Four. But just through the ability to pay that, I don't know if you're paying it forward or backward, but that was a very, very magical moment to be able to do that, and a credit to you. That was an emotional moment for Purdue fans and for yourself.
It was, and it was so soul crushing in 2019. We were so close to getting Cliz.
One bounce of basketball.
Four. Yeah. 3/10 of a second, quite frankly, 3/10 of a second. So kind of just felt appropriate in that moment to make sure that I knew Cliz was watching anyway. He had a really good seat from up top, but that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and you're still doing it, right? Your first three of the day of each broadcast
is always a bullseye. First made three is always a bullseye. So I'll do that as long as they'll keep me employed at Purdue. I can promise you that. All
right, that's great stuff. All right, I do want to ask you about your prep, and everybody that talks to you talks about how, to do this well, you have to know what you're talking about. And yes, you have the opportunity to be around coaches, and if you're around Matt Painter long enough, you're learning a lot of basketball anyway, and his staff. I mean, they're just savants when it comes to that. But talk about that prep and being able to do it. You're not rolling out the ball to do it. You've got a good broadcast partner in Bob Riddell, and the great Wes Scott helps put a good broadcast together. But what is your typical prep like for Indiana? What are you paying attention to? What do you watch? What do you see? You got an opportunity in the wonderful world of YouTube to watch press conferences. Maybe it's a little bit easier than it was 20 years ago, but what does that look like for you?
Well, number one, I am really, really fortunate that from a Purdue basketball standpoint, I'm basically given carte blanche to just about anything I want. Now, granted, I understand my place, and I say that because I'll sit in on film with our team, with our coaches. I'll sit in on scouting reports with our coaches. When I say I know my place, I sit in the back of the room and do not comment because they don't need to know my thoughts. But what a great luxury for me to know what, from a Purdue basketball standpoint, the game plan is going to be, and who the better players are for the other team and what it is they do well. Because Alan, those coaches put in a ton of hours, man. They know every little thing there is to know about, does a guy shoot from the right wing off the right-handed dribble 22% of the time? And if he does, does he make 12% of the whatever? It's crazy. The things they can glean from film study. So that really helps me, certainly. But yeah, if you want to know a typical day, actually preparing for Indiana, it started Wednesday morning at 8 a.m., right? We just played Tuesday night, up at 8, and I started on my just up. The nice thing about Purdue is you're just really updating things because you only add one more game, right? You see Purdue play every game. So it takes about 2 hours or so to just update some different numbers and things. Statistically, and more importantly, what have they done against Indiana in the past? Again, having already played them once this year, it's a little bit easier. And then I start working on the opponent, which is normally takes to about 3.5 to 4 hours when it's all said and done. And that's really more. But you mentioned it. The internet has made things so much easier. Not only do, especially the Big Ten level, the sports information departments are so good and provide so much great information on the players and the coaches and their backgrounds and where they played before and statistically, what they've done at other places and where they played high school or prep school, whatever it might be. And then you can just very easily, obviously, hop online and find a bunch of different newspaper articles or different online stories that have been written about the players, coaches, and or the team that can also give you a little bit of insight. And there was, I would say, if I had to put a percentage on it, probably 85% of that stuff that I go through, I'll never end up using. But it's always that 12 to 15% that you find that really ends up, being a pretty nice little nugget and really can add to the broadcast. So probably maybe a little overboard, but I once heard a broadcaster that I respected say you'd rather have way too much to talk about and not get to all of it than not have enough and just be stuck with nothing to say. So I try to go a little bit overboard and maybe have way too many things that I'll never talk about to begin with. But it is nice to have them in the holster, if you will, just in case you need to pull them out.
Yeah, and that ability to do that is called preparation. That's where
right.
the old quote about what luck is. So
that's right. Yeah, that's right. Opportunity meaning preparation.
Rob has been lucky in that
yes.
When you least measure it from that standpoint. Okay, last thing, Purdue Indiana tonight. Obviously, it's going to be another wild crowd. One would think. What do you expect to see? I'm not necessarily asking for a prediction, but sure. Indiana's going to come in with nothing to lose. Purdue's got to get the job done to maybe run the table for the rest of the season, get the best season, regular season, get the best seed in the Big Ten tournament. What do you expect?
Yeah, and I would add, really, when you're looking at seeding, you're in a position where if you could run the table regular season, you're probably putting yourself in a great spot for a 2 seed in the NCAA tournament. But that being said, number one, Indiana's not been a good rebounding team this year. Purdue really needs to dominate on the glass the way they did with Nebraska, the way they did with Iowa. I can understand getting out rebounded by Michigan because they, too, are a very, very good rebounding team. You can't have that happen tonight, especially the second chance opportunities. Again, look back to the Michigan game. The number of threes they made in the first half off second chance opportunities where Purdue could not corral the defensive rebound. Same thing will happen tonight if you give Indiana multiple opportunities from three because they're just too good of a three-point shooting team. One thing that does have me a little cautious is the fact that Dorn has not been shooting the three well for Indiana as of late. And he shot it well against Purdue and Bloomington. So he's more than capable. I'm kind of hoping maybe he doesn't find his shooting form tonight. Maybe we can do that next week. So I would start with the rebounding and then 3-point shooting. For those that watch closely in that game in late January, Purdue went small and really had their most success in the second half when they started playing Trey Kaufman at the 5. Not only did it help Purdue offensively, but it really helped Purdue defensively match up better with their 3-point shooters. I'm not privy to the game plan as much as I probably should be for tonight, just because my week's been crazy. But I can only assume you'll probably see a lot of small ball tonight with Purdue, with Trey at the 5, just to try to help combat the fact that, again, Indiana is not a big team. They rely on perimeter play. Which is fine if you can match that defensively, and that's what Purdue I think will try to do tonight. But that there's the catch-22. You want to dominate them on the glass, but you have to play small, right? Yeah. So you don't have Oscar Clough in the game a lot. You don't have Daniel Jacobson in the game a lot. So try to dominate the glass the best you can, and certainly when you do go to that small ball lineup, you're going to have to be really efficient offensively. Those will be the keys tonight for Purdue.
All right. We'll look forward to your broadcast and your work with Bob Riddell. And It's always a must listen if you're a Purdue fan, and we appreciate that very, very much. Alan Karpick, in the midst of a legend here in Don Fischer, voice of Indiana basketball, voice of Indiana sports, really. It's dating back to 1973, and he'll be in Mackey Arena when the Hoosiers come calling on the Boilermakers Friday night, 8:00. In a game that is very important to both teams. And Don, first, thanks for taking the time, and never a dull moment in the Big Ten, especially when it comes to Purdue and Indiana.
No, there's not. But honestly, there's never really a dull moment in the Big Ten these days. I mean, look at the upsets that are going on. Last night, I was stunned by Ohio State's win over Wisconsin. That was amazing in that sense. And this happens all over the league. I mean, we beat Wisconsin, but Wisconsin's beat both Michigan and Illinois. So you're sitting here going, what's going on? This league is just that tough.
Yeah. And, of course, Purdue didn't fare as well in a very tough game against Michigan. Michigan's really, really good. That's an understatement of the year. I think it's their heads and shoulders up. Their heads above. I think Illinois is really maybe 1B or at least 2. But how have you assessed, the upper echelon of the league? And of course, Indiana beat Purdue back in January, and the Hoosiers know how to get that done. But it is a good league, a very good league, and Michigan has really been staunch. What's been your impressions of the upper level of the league so far?
Well, I think like everybody else in this league, you just take, there's like maybe four teams right now that are in the hunt for a Big Ten championship. Obviously, Purdue being one of those. Nebraska is certainly another team that you could talk about, but they've had their problems here of late a little bit. And then there's a bunch of us that are kind of right up there in the middle part of the league. Just about everybody else except for maybe 4 teams, I think. So when you look at it, an 18-team league, how many teams are going to be taken in the NCAA tournament? That's the big question mark, because when you've got an 18-team league, you've got lots of things to take care of there from a win-loss standpoint. And let's face it, that's the most important part of basketball right now, is the win-loss record. Can you get into the NCAA tournament? And I know there's all kinds of people speculating on where your seed is and all those kinds of things, or even if you're in. Yeah. But I've never really looked at that. I don't think it's worth looking at this point, because it's all speculation. And until you get those, maybe up to the last week of the Big Ten season, you're really not going to know how many chances are there going to be for different teams throughout the league.
And one of the most dangerous things is to look at things on paper, as we know. Indiana's obviously got to go to Purdue on Friday night, and then they host Northwestern. They host Michigan State and Minnesota, I think, before going to Ohio State.
Right.
You got a chance to make some statements. Indiana, one would presume, will be an underdog in Friday night's game against Purdue.
Correct.
But this is a chance. Indiana has a schedule that appears to be relatively manageable. If you call a road game at Ohio State and a home game against Michigan State manageable, I mean, how do you view that as what the Hoosiers need to do to continue to bolster that resume?
Well, my feeling is you've got to win 20 games or you're not going to get in no matter what. And then on top of that, I think maybe you need 21 and maybe even 22, especially with an 18-team league and that middle bunch that it could be anybody getting in there out of that group. So right now you've got to take care of business, and you might be able here in the last 5 ball games to maybe get away with 3 wins and get lucky. But if you get 4, I think you've got a very good chance of getting the NCAA tournament. And if you don't get at least 3, I don't think you've got any chance whatsoever at this point.
Yeah, it is, like you said, so competitive, and everybody is a bracketologist, and you can read any varied number of opinions. And you're right, it doesn't really come into play until you get to the last week of the regular season, Big Ten tournament time, which again, teams can also help their resumes. All right, tell us what's changed, or what Indiana obviously had a couple huge wins after the Purdue game, beating UCLA in overtime and beating Wisconsin in a crazy finish to that game. But if for Purdue fans or those coming to Mackey Arena on Friday night, what's been different? What do you expect from the Hoosiers coming into will be an unfriendly situation in West Lafayette?
Well, there's no question it's going to be a test. It's going to be tough. I think the one thing about Indiana, they went through a streak there. They lost 4 games in a row back about a month and a half ago, and those 4 games really hurt. And the team didn't look very good at that point. They weren't playing their best basketball. Team-wise, they were not that they were disjointed in the sense of not playing together, but they just didn't have the execution going like they have over the last 7 ball games now. And they've lost 2 of those, but they've won 5 of those. And so they've gotten back on track. And the West Coast trip, I thought they were capable of winning both those games out there. They beat UCLA in double overtime. They didn't look as sharp against USC, and they got beat in that contest. Then they come back home and they whip a Wisconsin team that has always been a struggle for Indiana. As everybody knows, Indiana hadn't beaten Wisconsin at Wisconsin since 1998, for goodness sakes. Yeah. And all of a sudden, they've beaten Wisconsin a couple of times here at home. They still haven't managed that one on the road, but they don't play them on the road so far this year, and unless they play them in the Big Ten tournament. So that's the good news there. I think this team right now is still dealing with what their limitations are. And what their limitations are basically are size and the same kind of physicality that some of these other teams possess. So at this juncture, when they get into a ball game against a team like Purdue or Illinois or Michigan State, those are the kinds of teams that they struggle with because they don't match up very well. But the one thing that they do is they play hard. And they play hard in every single game you watch. That's the one thing I think has endeared this team to the Indiana faithful, so to speak, is how hard they play, how hard they go at it at the defensive end. And, of course, they've changed their lineup a little bit, too. They've inserted Nick Dorn in the starting lineup, who gives them a third scorer from outside, which is critical, especially for this team that needs to make threes and is able to spread the floor with those guys out there. And then the one guy that has really played, there are actually a couple of guys that have really played terrific basketball that have kind of helped this team a lot in this segment, and that's been Connor Enright, who's just been terrific at that one guard spot. And then the other guy is Sam Alexis, who's kind of asserted himself over the last couple of weeks as the post player that has been a little bit more dominant than what Reed Bailey was. So the fact that they've got a guy like Lamar Wilkerson, who I think is every bit should be considered for Big Ten Player of the Year. I know Braden Smith has certainly always been the favorite in that regard, and I don't blame anybody for voting for Braden Smith because he's tremendous. But I don't think there's anybody that's probably been a bigger factor for a ball club this year than what Lamar Wilkerson has been for Indiana. The guy's averaging 24 points a game in Big Ten play. And 21 on the season. I mean, he's just had a great year. And so he has been the constant for Indiana so far this season. Tucker DeVries, of course, started out pretty hot with the shooting and all that kind of thing, and he kind of cooled off mid-season. Hasn't really gotten back to that same level, but what he does on the floor for Indiana is hugely important. He's that glue guy, the guy that coaches as a coach's son, and he's a coach on the floor for the team. He makes a lot of things happen out there with his rebounding, with his ability to distribute the basketball when he's not shooting it. And one of those guys that's very cerebral and really knows and understands the game. So I think this is still a very good basketball team, again, with limitations, but a ball club that can knock anybody off on a given night if they play their best basketball.
Yeah, and Tucker's dad, Darren DeVries, has been obviously the new guy comes in, has to assemble a team, which he's done an excellent job with that, and making the Hoosiers very, very competitive from that standpoint. But talk about that relationship and what he's been like, Darren, in terms of a new sheriff in town, a new regime. Indiana plays a little differently than it's played in the past, but what's he been like, not only to work with, but what do you watch in terms of his strengths as a head basketball coach in the Big Ten?
Well, I think and this is Al. I'm going to tell you something that dates back to the day he was put on the stand to talk to the fan base and to the news press conference when he was announced as the new coach. The things that he said in that press conference reminded me very much of what I heard from Curt Cignetti at the very beginning of Curt Cignetti's career here, which tells you a little bit about who they were looking for from a basketball perspective side. I'm talking about the administration now, because they wanted somebody that kind of understood what Curt Cignetti was all about and how he went about his business. And I think Darren does a really good job of saying a lot of the same things, maybe not the same way that Sig says them, but nevertheless, I think he does a really good job of understanding what he's looking for. He knows how to build a roster. He did it at West Virginia last year. Obviously, he did it this year. And the way things have turned out, we've got a very competitive basketball team, again, with some limitations. But you can only get so much out of the portal. And when you're recruiting an entirely new roster. So in Indiana, I think is one of those teams that was able to get some very positive stuff out of the new guys that came on the floor and became a part of this program. So in that context, I think Darren's been great. I think his style of play is very much like Indiana fans want to see. They want to see great defense and hustling defense. They want to see the ball spread around, unselfishness, and they want to see a ball club that can make threes, which we hadn't seen for about 8 to 10 years here in Indiana. I mean, we just haven't been a very good three-point shooting team over this last 8 to 10 seasons. So, and that finally has changed. It hasn't changed in the sense of this ball club, having the limitations that they do have. And without question, they're a team that can be beat, but they also could beat you if they play at their best. And that's the one thing right now. I think Darren's trying to get these guys to understand we're capable of winning every game we have left on the schedule, but you've got to perform and you've got to execute the offense and the defense at both ends.
All right. The segue to you have to ask a question about your experience. I think probably even from the Purdue perspective, the people that know you and know of your wonderful career were the happiest for you to have the football experience and that guy named Curt Cignetti coming into your life here over the last 2 years. Yes, I know Purdue fans were I'm sure were conflicted in the game against Miami, but you can't minimize that. That glow for you as a broadcaster, I'm sure it never goes away, but what an experience that was. And looking back now, almost a month later or close to it, how do you put it in perspective?
Well, I still have all kinds of people coming up to me and saying, can you believe what we did in football? And I mean, it's amazing how many people are still basking in the glory of a national championship on the football field that I don't think 99% of Indiana fans would have thought in their lifetimes that they would ever see that. And without doubt, they have now experienced it. Everybody is so hungry from a football standpoint now. And just from a Curt Cignetti perspective alone, this guy is a tremendous football coach. And I say that with all reverence because I've seen what he's done for the last 2 seasons now. You don't do that unless you know what you're doing and you know how to do it. And his process has been fabulous. Everything that he says he's going to do, they have done. And obviously, to keep that up, it's going to have to continue. And I think it will because I think that's how good this guy really is. And the transfer portal has opened up in a big way for Indiana now, as has high school recruiting. I mean, we were at 6th tier type of football program in getting players to come to Indiana. And I mean, unless you were a 5-star or a 1, 2, or 3-star type player, and I don't believe in stars any more than Curt Cignetti does, because I know he doesn't believe in that. But when you talk about us as media people and the fact that that's how the ratings come out, and so you look at your roster and you go, well, that's a 4 or 5-star guy. We didn't have that many on this year's team. When you think about it, I mean, most of these guys were 3-star guys and guys that developed. since they've come on campus here. And that's just an amazing feat in itself. And it testifies to how good this coaching staff really is under Curt Cignetti. And he vets everybody. He vets everybody that comes in through the door from the football standpoint. And if they don't fit the criteria, see ya. You're not going to be around.
And you look at the wonderful world of college athletics, and Indiana hit it on the screws in terms of making that transformation, getting the right guy without question, getting the right players. That he brought some of them, but you guys developed Indiana developed a terrific roster this past year. How do you see? You've been watching this for a long time. Do you know, in terms of how does stability come to this world, or is this this is the new normal for now? But is this sustainable in your view? Or if you were the commissioner, how do you make this work for everybody down the road?
I think, well, first of all, you can't put toothpaste back in the tube, and that's what we've done with college athletics, with NIL and now the revenue sharing and all those kinds of things. So it's a different world we live in. And I'm an old man in regard to being around here for a long time, and I don't know how it all fits together at this point. I just know that we have a football coach that knows how to do it and has done it in dramatic fashion here. And I think our basketball coach is trying to do the exact same thing. It's probably not going to happen as quickly on the basketball floor. Obviously, this team, if it makes the NCAA tournament, that's what everybody at IU is hoping for this season. If they don't make it, it's not going to be the end of the world, because I do think that they've got some recruits coming in that are going to be really helpful. And then, of course, they'll go to the transfer portal to fill in the blanks, so to speak, in regard to what they actually need. And I thought that DeVries did a great job, like I said earlier, in building that roster from the very beginning and getting most of what he would like to have had on his ball club. But he's still got some holes to fill, and that's going to be a big factor if he can get that done for next season.
All right. We won exciting thing in the world of broadcasting is it's an award that Don has won 28 times, but like I said, who's counting? That's, of course, the Indiana Sportscaster of the Year. Rob Blackman gets named to that for 2025, and you've had a chance to work for years with Larry Clisby, and that legacy lives on. And you guys, I know, we're close from that standpoint, but and I think that Rob's award is Rob would be one of the ones that would be first to give plaudits to Larry Clisby and all the broadcasters he's run across. But talk about the significance of Rob's award and also the legacy of Larry Clisby, because they're both important in the big picture of Big Ten broadcasting.
Well, first of all, I know Rob worked with Larry for a long time too, and I know that those two guys were pretty close. And Rob is a terrific broadcaster, very much a pro, very professional, and does a great job on the air. And I've really enjoyed listening to him when I've had the opportunities. I've known Rob for a lot longer time than maybe not as long as I knew Larry, but definitely he's worked with him for a long time. And he's just a great broadcaster. And he's one of those people, not just on the air, but he's one of those guys off the air that you could really relate to, because he's just a great person. Larry Clisby, one of the funniest people I've ever been around without actually trying to be funny. Because Larry was one of those guys that had a unique lifestyle, so to speak. I mean, he was mowing lawns while he was being a play-by-play broadcaster for the Purdue Boilermakers back in the day. And, of course, I know he got himself in a little trouble 2 or 3 times, and the coaches saved him, and good for them, because Larry's a terrific broadcaster, and we all miss him. He's one of those guys that obviously developed cancer and didn't get it beaten, but he was hanging in there for a long time, dealing with it. And all the people at Purdue I know loved Larry Clisby. He was a great broadcaster and a guy that I revered as well as a friend.
Don, well said, and we look forward to seeing you in Mackey Arena on Friday night. We thank you so much for your time and your expertise. Nobody has seen more than you in terms of the world of Big Ten basketball and all your accomplishments over the years, and the fact that you also know it when you see it, when you can celebrate guys like Rob Blackman, obviously, and Larry Clisby, and we appreciate you so much.
Well, thank you, Alan. I appreciate your having me as always. And we look forward to Friday night. It'll be a fun game.
Want to thank our sponsor, the Union Club Hotel, 811 Bistro, Boiler Up Bar, and Leaps Coffee. We appreciate you. And we want to thank, obviously, our guests, Chris Kramer, Rob Blackman, and Don Fischer. And if you're listening this before the Indiana game and traveling to the Purdue Indiana game, hope your travels are safe. But we appreciate you guys all taking the time to what I think is interesting stuff when we have the opportunity to talk about Purdue, Indiana, and the state of college athletics, all the way down to the minutia that we get into. And a reminder, too, that you can leave us a positive review and a 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform on YouTube. You can like and subscribe, enable alerts. Great idea. We put a lot of content out there. And finally, we would really like you to subscribe or become a member of GoldandBlack.com. There's a 2-month special for $1 at PU1. If you put that in as you become a member, we would appreciate that very much. So have a great rest of your day. We'll be back next week. We're going to talk a little NCAA eligibility and NIL revenue share with Pete Rush next week, and that will be the plan. And Pete is an attorney who has been integrally involved with several cases, and a Lafayette area native that will bring us some real interesting perspective on where we are in this wonderful world of college athletics. So have a great rest of your week and weekend, and we'll see you next week on GoldandBlack.com Saturday Simulcast. And again, we appreciate all of you listening to us on a Friday. Have a great day.